Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining today's webinar. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes. What we are just going to do is wait for everybody to join. Just while people are joining, what I am going to make you aware of is that today's session will be recorded. A copy of the recording will be shared on the back of today's session along with the slide deck. And if we do share any links during today's session or discuss any links, these will also be shared in the follow-up email, which you are likely to receive at some point this afternoon. As I said, numbers are just creeping up, so we are waiting for a few more attendees, and we will get started in just a couple of moments. Just as a quick introduction, I'm Lauren, I'm going to be your host for today. I'm just going to start the screen share so you can see the presentation that we are going to be running through. There we go. So you should now all be able to see my screen. If any of you can't see my screen, if you could please let me know. If you have any questions, again, also do let me know. Brilliant. So I am going to make a start to this morning's webinar then. This is the Helping SMEs VCSEs Grow in the Public Sector Finding Opportunities session. So just a little bit of housekeeping to begin with. As I have said to those who joined bang on half past, we are going to be recording today's session. Copy of the recording will be sent out on the back of today's session along with the slide deck. If we do discuss any links during today's session, we will also be sharing any links discussed or any piece of information, any helpful information also on the follow-up email. A little introduction from myself then. So I'm Lauren Siddons. I am the procurement assistant at Go for Growth. Go for Growth, if you aren't aware, we work alongside public sector authorities, helping organisations to access public sector opportunities. By public sector opportunities, we mean contract opportunities. And what we do is we offer mentoring and support all the way through the tendering process. We'll talk a bit more about the tendering process during today's session. But what we're hoping, we may as well go into what we are going to be covering today. So we're going to be having a look at who the public sector are. If you haven't yet worked for the public sector or you're not too sure of like what they identify as or who you are going to be approaching when wanting to work with the public sector, that's what we're going to cover off first off. Following that, we're going to be looking into procurement portals. Procurement portals are the places you will find and navigate your tender or bid. And then finally, we're going to be having a look into networking and social media, exploring the ways how networking and social media, the use of, can help you access the public sector. So moving on to our first slide then. So we're going to be covering off in this first slide who the public sector are and what the public sector buy. So the public sector then, they are the portion of the economy that are owned and run by the government. So they are the provider of public services in the UK. But of course, to be able to provide these public services, they have to be first purchased. And that is public sector procurement or public sector purchasing. This is where you guys as organisations come in. So the things that the public sector would be purchasing, obviously we're running straight into the second bullet point. So what the public sector are purchasing, these are the public services. So that is healthcare, that could be care services, it could be education services, higher education services, housing, refuse collection, all just to name a few. I'm sure whoever is sat in this webinar today will be thinking, you'll be going back to the type of service or product that you supply and thinking, how does that fit into the public sector? And there are many ways, there's a lot of products and services that you wouldn't even think that the public sector are procuring until you delve in and actually start looking at the contract opportunities that are out there. So Go for Growth, we are a service that the public sector purchase in order to help smaller organisations access them. So one thing before we did actually start today's webinar, around a week before, so I think it was last Wednesday, we actually sent out a survey to attendees just to give them the option to submit any questions that they would like to be covered within today's session or any piece of information they'd like us to run over. One question or one piece of information that we was asked to actually bring into today's session was funding for third sector organisations and how that fits into public sector. Now, funding for third sector organisations, I mean, public sector contracts are a good funding route for businesses and third sector organisations as a whole. So there are grants that are also third sector organisations can apply for. So there's no real difference what we're trying to say between a third sector organisation and your standard organisation. So whether Go for Growth went for an opportunity or whether a third sector organisation went for an opportunity, it's an equal playing field when it comes to the contracting competitions. It is a good route for funding, but also there's grant funding opportunities as well. There'll be grant funding opportunities for both third sector, voluntary organisations, standard organisations, SMEs. There's many opportunities out there, and what we're trying to get across in today's webinar is that the opportunities that are out there are accessible no matter the size or the way that your organisation identifies. The way that you access the public sector may be slightly different, and the support that you need may be slightly different. Because what we appreciate at Go for Growth is that maybe for a smaller organisation, the resources that a larger organisation have, maybe say for example the ability to hire bid writers, to hire persons within the organisation to actually be searching for the opportunities, on a smaller scale, the smaller organisations don't have the resources to be able to do so, whether that is time, whether that is monetary resources. There's a number of factors out there that can affect an organisation's ability to access the public sector, and it shouldn't be that way, which is one of the reasons why Go for Growth exists. So what we are going to be looking at as well, sorry, just before we do move on as well, what I will be linking into the follow-up email on the back of today's session is actually a link to one of the previous webinars that we did, which was a grants versus tenders webinar. As I've just said, obviously there are grant funding opportunities and there are tendering opportunities out there. If you are interested in finding out a bit more about the difference of those, how you can access the grant funding in comparison to tender opportunities, what I will do is link the webinar that we did alongside Nottingham organisation couple of months back now. Like I say, I'll link that into the follow-up email. If you've got any questions on the back of that, please do just get in touch. There will be contact details noted on the final slide of this PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is also going to be shared on the back of this webinar in the follow-up email, of course. So a bit that basically covers our introduction to the public sector art and what the public sector buy. What I'm going to move on to next is how to actually access them. So where to find the opportunities. In this next section, which is the main part of this webinar, I will say is procurement portals. What we're going to be doing is giving some examples of procurement portals that are out there. We're going to be looking into government hosted portals and explaining the difference between government hosted portals and a procurement portal hosted by a standalone authority, and we're also going to be doing a demonstration of one of those portals. We will also give a quick demo over one of the government hosted portals as well. So let's get started then. So as an organisation that is looking to work with the public sector, you will be wondering where to actually start. One of the main questions that we do get as a support organisation actually is where to find the opportunities. And what I always say to organisations when they first come to me is that there is no correct place to start. Where you actually start looking for opportunities is completely dependent on who you wanting to work for, where you wanting to work. So say, for example, if you're looking to work across the UK, looking on one particular portal, so say for example your tender, which we're going to be coming to later today, your tender is the procurement portal used by councils within the Yorkshire and Humber area. So I'm based in Barnsley, and the reason I use your tender as the example is that's my local council's tendering portal. However, so say you were an organisation based in Yorkshire, but you were interested in supplying your product or service to public sector authorities across the UK. You wanting to supply to the NHS, you wanting to supply to blue light organisations, looking mainly on your tender or just on your tender for opportunities is going to leave you missing out really, because you will then only see the council authorities, and that is again only 27 councils within Yorkshire and the Humber. So there are many different procurement portals out there, and I have actually skipped over completely what a procurement portal actually is. A procurement portal is the portal which is used by contracting authorities to not only advertise public sector tendering opportunities, so the contract opportunities, they will advertise and get market engagement events such as Meet the Buyer events, usually on the procurement portals, in the run-up to the opportunity actually going live. Any networking or conversation in the run-up to an opportunity going live will be advertised on the procurement portal, usually, I will say. Once the opportunity goes live, the opportunity will be advertised via the portal, and that is where you will access the tender documentation. That is where you will submit any clarification questions for anybody who may not be aware of questions. So during contract competition time, you can ask the authority questions about the opportunity. A clarification question will be a deadline for clarification questions, but the portal is where you would ask those questions and also where you'd receive your response. Like I said, it's where you'll download the tender documentation from. You'll download it to your computer, and then once you've completed the document, so say for example a standard selection questionnaire or an invitation to tender, you will then submit it back onto the procurement portal and submit that ready for evaluation. So just to name a few of the procurement portals then, as we've already gone into, there's Your Tender, which is the Yorkshire and the Humber portal. We have Atomis. Atomis is the NHS procurement portal. There is also, so Your Tender is hosted by a provider called EU Supply. EU Supply hosts portals for more than one contracting authority. Blue Light Commercial also use EU Supply. So if you are familiar with either of these portals, you'll notice that Your Tender and Blue Light Commercial's procurement portal, they are set up very similarly. And that is because it's the same portal, just under a different name. And you'll notice that as you are becoming more familiar with alternative procurement portals, you will find that a number of authorities will be using the same host, but via their own details, if that makes sense. So say, for example, another portal that you'll come across is Intend. Intend is they tend to host portals for higher education. So when you're looking at, so say, for example, you're looking at a university in Cornwall, say, for example, in comparison to a university in Liverpool, you may find that the portal is exactly the same, but just hosted by a different authority. And that's the only thing that looks different. So the registration is very similar. However, because it is two separate authorities, you will have to register twice. Now, if you are looking to looking for opportunities UK-wide, what you may find is that if you're looking through individual procurement portals, you'll end up registered with numerous you'll end up registered on numerous portals, and if you're setting up notifications to receive updates when new opportunities are going live, you'll be inundated with emails and really then missing out on things because you don't have the time to be looking through all of the emails that are coming through with all of the new opportunities. You can get messed up with login details. Obviously, that is easy to get around if you're conscious with your admin, but rather than looking through all the different portals and waiting for all the different opportunity notifications to come through on an email, what I sometimes advise is to be looking at government hosted portals. The reason I say look at government hosted portals is due to the fact that it's mandatory for opportunities to be advertised via these government hosted portals. And when I say mandatory, I should choose my wording a little better there. For central government, any opportunity worth over £10,000 is mandatory to be advertised on a government portal. The government portal which it's mandatory to be hosted on is called Contracts Finder. We'll go into Contracts Finder in a little more detail in just a moment, but coming back to the government hosted portals, the reason these are such a good tool is because everything is advertised on them. So whether it's an opportunity with Barnsley Council, whether it's an opportunity with Lewisham and Greenwich NHS Trust, they will all be on Contracts Finder or Find a Tender, which is the other government hosted portal for you to search through. The reason that there are two government hosted portals, Contracts Finder is for below threshold opportunities and Find a Tender is for above threshold opportunities. So above threshold is an opportunity worth over 118,000. So if you know you're going to be only interested in opportunities above threshold, there's no point you looking on Contracts Finder and having to miss through the opportunities which are below that value. So Find a Tender would be the one for you if that's the case. If you're not interested, if the value, you're actually quite happy to look at anything from 0 to 1 million plus kind of thing, Contracts Finder is probably the one for you because the opportunities that are hosted on Find a Tender would then also be hosted on Contracts Finder as well. What I did want to run into just quickly for you is to give a quick demonstration of Contracts Finder so you can see how it works. If you are wanting also, like we'd said, that you can set up notifications on procurement portals, Contracts Finder is one of the portals that you can do this. So rather than setting up notifications on the Your Tenders, on the Intends, on the Atomis, rather than waiting for notifications to come through from all of those separately and becoming, like I'd said, inundated with many different opportunities all at once, what you can do is set up a saved search on Contracts Finder, and you can set up how often you want notifications. But like I said, I'm going to do a demonstration, so I'll show you all of this when I am going through the demonstration. So bear with me just a moment. So you should be able to see on my screen now the Contracts Finder. This is the homepage that you'll come to when first finding the Contracts Finder. We will be sharing a link to Contracts Finder on the back of today's email. We will also share a link to Find a Tender as well. If you've got any questions on either of these on the back of today's session, you are more than welcome to submit any questions, again, using the contact details that we share on the back of today. So what we're first going to do then is look over the ways that you can search. So the first way that you can search through Contracts Finder is via keywords. You'll see when I select the drop-down box, these are the things that I've been searching when I've been looking for opportunities for Go for Growth. So SME growth, business growth, SME development, that kind of thing. What you would need to do as an organisation is spend some time on Contracts Finder, playing around with the keywords to understand what fits your organisation best. At any one time during the UK, there's an average around 2,500 opportunities live. And obviously the majority of that 2,500 won't be relevant to your organisation, which is why it's so important to get these keywords whittled down to something that actually works for you and is bringing the most relevant opportunities back. You can select from Contracts Finder whereabouts you're interested in working. So if you're interested in working, like we say, all across the UK, you'd keep, of course, all locations. If you want to work regionally, you can select, so say, for example, Yorkshire and the Humber, West Midlands, you can see all of these, of course. You'd select where you're happy to work, and you can select more than one, of course. So finally, you can select a search within a postcode region. So if I want to work within 10 miles from my home, 20 miles, or only look for opportunities within this mile radius from where my office is based, that of course is the search that I would input. It is all kind of straightforward, at least I think so. I kind of see it as the Indeed of the contracting world. It works very similarly. The final thing that you can select is early engagement, future opportunity, or opportunity, as well as awarded contract. The only one that I ever really leave blank is the awarded contract. That's contracts that have been and gone. You may be searching these if you want to find out who was the successful bidder. But early engagement may be, like we discussed earlier, market engagement such as meet the buyer events, or if there's an opportunity due to go live in, say, 6 months and they're wanting to take some feedback from potential providers as to how the opportunity should be run, that would be your early engagement. Again, future opportunity, quite similar to that. And then the opportunity is when the contract's live and ready to be bid for. What I'm going to do is a search completely blank, as you see. I'm putting no keywords in there. That's handy, bear with me a second. Brilliant, you'll see there. So at the moment, like I said, there's on average around 2,500. There are currently 2,266 notices live in the UK. So we can whittle that number down, like we said, using the keywords, using the procurement stages, using other things. One thing that it doesn't go into on that first search page is an industry CPV code. Now, I'm not sure whether you guys would be familiar with CPV codes at this point in time, but what it stands for is Common Procurement Vocabulary. And what it is, as it says here in the quick description, it's a way to classify contracts in a standardized way. So if you browse CPV codes, I see CPV code as kind of like a tree. So you can start from like quite a vague search like we see here. I'm just going to go down to food, beverages, tobacco and related products. That's quite vague. Whereas if you're wanting to search for something that's a bit more niche, you can use these plus points. And as you'll see, they filter down quite quite in depth, and that's what I mean by the CPV code tree. It's either something quite big on a big branch and then coming down to the smaller branches or specific products or services. You see, so all the way down, you can limit the search. And if we were to do a search from the original 2,266 to just potato products, we'll add the CPV code filter, update the results, and there are 6 notices. So it's a way to make the search that you're going to be doing quicker. But also, like I said, you can save the search that you've done on Contracts Finder. So if you then save the search, I do believe that is on here. Yeah, so you'll save the search. I just need to quickly sign in. Apologies for this. I'm only signing just to show you the options that you have with saving your search for how often you receive the notifications, that kind of thing. So we've got the 6 notices, and this will only give you a notification or send you an email update when there are new opportunities available. So we'll save the search. You can obviously put what how often you'd like the update. So if there is a new opportunity every single day, you will receive a new email every single day. If you want it only weekly, fortnightly, or monthly, I would say the more often you have these notifications, the better. That way you're not missing out on anything. On average, we'd say there's probably around 4 weeks to sort of like from a tender going live to the submission deadline. On average, would say probably 4 weeks. And if you are getting the notifications fortnightly and something, so say I put this save through today, a new opportunity comes available tonight, but I don't get a notification for the next 2 weeks, I've missed out on valuable time. And another issue that we do tend to get from providers a lot of the time is how long they have to submit their bids, how long they have to work on those bids and prepare for those bids. It can be a real struggle. So the more time you give yourself, the absolute better. So we'll pop that through as a daily notification. And you can diff the content as to whether you want in new notices only or updates to existing notices. And to be fair, as you navigate Contracts Finder, you'll come to understand which one works best for you. So if you found an opportunity that you're interested in, I would normally probably keep it as new notices only, because if I've searched through those opportunities and I've found an opportunity that's of interest to me, that's when I would then go and express interest on it via the direct procurement portal. So you shouldn't then need updates from Contracts Finder if you found something that's of interest to yourself. So I would normally keep it as new notices only. One thing that I'll run into then before we go back and do your tender demonstration is how you will actually then express interest in an opportunity. So like I said earlier on in today's session, Contracts Finder and Find a Tender are advertisement portals only. So you can't actually bid for the opportunity using these portals. You can view all of the information. You can find out when the closing date is, the deadlines, where the contract location is, the value of the contract, everything such as that. But to actually bid for the opportunity, you need to be using the specific procurement portal, such as the Your Tenders, the Intends, so on and so forth. So I'm going to select this one just as an example. Selecting the blue link will give you more information regarding the opportunity, but then somewhere within the description, you'll be given detail of how to actually access the opportunity. And here, so under links, this is where you would actually express your interest and go on to tender. What I'll do is just select this link so you can see what I mean. It takes you to the supplier, so the Contracts and Authorities portal. What you would then need to do is create an account. So register for Oracle Fusion or log into if you already have an account. This will take you to the registration process. And what I'm going to do is, because we are going to be doing a quick example of a procurement portal, I will move over straight away actually onto Your Tender. So bear with me just a quick moment. I'm just going to get a quick drink because my throat's itching. So I'm going to come out of this supplier registration portal. Just bear with me a quick moment. And we're going to move over onto the Your Tender portal. So as we mentioned briefly, or a couple of times now, Your Tender is the procurement portal for at least, I believe the number is 27 contracting authorities or 27 councils within Yorkshire and the Humber. So anybody local to Yorkshire may or may not have come across this portal up to now, but what we are going to be doing is quickly running through the registration process. Registration for procurement portals does tend to be pretty much the same across the board. Now, there will be, I say that through gritted teeth kind of thing, like it's not always going to be the exact same. The majority of the information that you'll be asked to input is very, very similar. There will be differences, of course, between different contracting authorities for various reasons. But they are usually quite similar. What I will say also is we're going to be running through this registration today based on your tender only, but on the Go for Growth YouTube channel, we do have demos for multiple procurement portals. What I will do is link to our YouTube channel on the back of today's session again, so you can see all of these demonstrations and some of the things that we are going to be coming to later in the session. So let's get on with running through the registration demo. Then if you do have any questions, again, you are more than welcome to pop them in the Q&A function. I'll be coming back to the Q&A function at the end of today's session. We've got a time for Q&A before we do end. And if there are any questions based on other registrations for other portals, of course, on the back of today, please do let us know. Again, contact details on the final slide of today's slide deck. So we're going to select new supplier registration then. And what you're asked first for in the supplier registration is your general company information. So clues in the name, so it's such as your organisation name, address, description of your business, that kind of thing. But we'll run through step by step so you can see, and I can give a quick description as to what all of the pieces of information are really. So the type of organisation, so whether you are private, public limited company, sole trader, partnership, charity organisation or other. Your company trading name, so mine would be Go for Growth Support Services Limited. Your organisation number, or better known as VAT number. Your DUNS code. A lot of people do come to me and ask what a DUNS code is. So a DUNS code is a Dun & Bradstreet number. You may or may not have one of these, and that is why it's not marked as a mandatory box. If you're not aware of what your DUNS number is, or you're not sure whether you have one, you can of course just pop an A in that field. However, if you are wanting to know whether you have a Dun & Bradstreet number or you're wanting to apply for one, there is a website that you can go to, which is the Dun & Bradstreet website. I will again link this in the follow-up email today. You will search using company information, so you'll search using your, I believe it's your registered company number and company trading name. You'll then do a search and it will tell you whether there is one or whether there isn't one. If you want one, you can then apply for one. As you'll see, there is also a demonstration of how to get your Dun & Bradstreet number on our YouTube channel. So I am going to be linking, like I said, to the YouTube channel if you are wanting to watch that, find out whether your organisation does or doesn't have one. You'll then be asked to confirm whether your organisation is SME, so a small to medium enterprise or not. Registered address for your organisation, so that's of course not your address, it is your company's registered address, and postcode, the city where you're registered to and country. A quick description of your business, maximum 500 characters. You don't need to put much detail in this at all, it is just a brief description of the product or service that you offer. Next section of the registration then is company contact information. So our point of contact, that is the person you would like to be contacted about any opportunities that you've expressed interest in, or to provide information about any updates on EU supply, about your account, that kind of thing. A contact number, so whether that's going to be a home, work, mobile, and then provide the mobile number there, of course. An email address, that is the email address for the point of contact, and of course the mobile number for the point of contact as well. You can send a test email just to make sure that's working okay. And then administrator information, as it does say here, you can have the same information as you have just inputted above. Simply press that button and it will copy it straight over. Or if there is going to be somebody else in your organisation who would be admin for the account, of course, their first name, last name, their role within the organisation. Again, whether it's mobile, work, pager, that kind of thing, the actual contact number and an email address. Preferred language, it does only give the option for English, so we'll leave that as it is. Final one, or one of the final ones, should I say, sorry, is the admin credentials. You will need to create a username and a password for your account. Supplying this information, you'll receive a link to confirm your registration, I do believe, once you do submit this form. And then these are the details that you'll use to log in going forward. Email addresses for alerts. So when you do set up alerts for your tender, you will have, this is the standard email. So if I was generating the account today, I would put my email address. But if I also want my colleague Jill to receive the email notifications, of course, you can add more than one email at a time. I'll just pop my email there just to show you, and then you can add more than one. You can add as many as you do like. But notifications at this point in time haven't been set up. What we are going to do is once we've completed this demo registration, I'll log into your tender page just so you can see how to set up the notifications as well, and also see what an account looks like once it has been set up. So once you've inputted the email addresses for alerts, then you'll need to confirm that you have and do agree to the terms and conditions and privacy notice. Confirm that you've read the terms and do accept them before saving the information, which will create your account, and you will receive the email to activate your account, basically. So running back to then the home page, at this point in time, we're assuming you've registered your account, you're ready to actually start looking for opportunities or set up the notification for opportunities. We will go to the login button straight here, which will refresh your page and take you to now your home page. You can see there's a lot of information on here and it could take you back quite a bit, but the main things that you are going to be using on this homepage would be CTM published tenders. This link is where you will this is what you'll use to search for new opportunities, and you can search via buyers, you can search via dates, you can search via tender details such as the reference number for the opportunity. But what we're going to be looking at doing today is just looking at how to set up the tender alerts, which is the CTM tender alerts button here. We'll select this link and it will refresh your page. As you can see, my CTM tender alerts are currently switched off. And it is, again, really simple. Just flick over onto switch alerts on, confirm the email addresses where you want the notifications to go to. And then finally, what notifications you'd like to receive. If you don't select any CPV codes, and obviously we've looked at CPV codes already once in today's session, so the common procurement vocabularies, the CPV code tree, what you need to do is have a look through the CPV codes available. As you can see, add CPV codes. You'll look through all of these options and select any that are of interest to you. If you have no CPV code selected, you won't receive any notifications because the system doesn't know what you're interested in receiving the notifications on, of course. So it's really important to take a good look through these, identify which CPV codes are relevant to your organisation. I'm going to select, say, for example, education and training services. Add the selected categories. And then we will confirm that by selecting done. And then on the back of this page, just select done one more time and it will refresh you back to your home page. That is the notifications now set up for your organisation. What I will do is I'll just come back to manage CTM tenders just quickly for you so you can see the alerts are on and education and training services has been saved. So that is the quick demo for your tender then. Again, any questions on the back of that quick demo? There is a more in-depth demonstration, again, also on our YouTube channel. Today's was just a quick run through and a chance for you to see it live and just how quickly it could be to get registered on these portals. If you bear with me just a quick moment, then I'm just going to get back to the slides before we do look at running into the networking and social media uses. Brilliant. So the engagement then, so although the procurement portals are the most common and probably the way that 9 times out of 10 you will be looking to access the public sector, they are fantastic, but other than procurement portals, there are other ways to access the public sector. And when I say access the public sector, I mean just engage with the public sector. It's becoming more and more common that the public sector or contracting authorities are talking about their upcoming opportunities, discussing their forward pipeline, which is what they're going to be purchasing in the future, via social media. And through networking events. Obviously, we've got a couple of bullet points here, so we'll run through them in order. So when we say networking events in regards to accessing the public sector, what we mean is events, and you've heard me speak of Meet the Buyer events a couple of times already in today's session, but networking events are advertised via your contracting authority, and it may be that they're advertised through their social media channels. It may be that the networking events are advertised through Contracts Finder, Find a Tender, or via, of course, just the individual contracting authorities portals. So if you are, say, like me, I'm based in Yorkshire, if I was interested in working or engaging with my local council, so with Barnsley Council, what I would be doing is keeping an eye out on Barnsley Council's social media channels. I would be looking on your tender. I wouldn't, if I'm focusing directly on Barnsley Council, I wouldn't need to be looking on Contracts Finder or Find a Tender for them to be advertising networking events, because if it's on Contracts Finder or Find a Tender, it is already, of course, going to be on their procurement portal, which is the Your Tender. So I would be actively looking for networking events with Barnsley Council, because I know I want to work with them. I know that I want to engage with them. And the ways in which I could do this is by attending the events that they're putting on. And Meet the Buyer event, like we've discussed a number of times already this morning, is an event that the contracting authority may host to discuss potentially a specific opportunity. If they've got an event coming up within the next 6 months, they may host a Meet the Buyer event based on that specific opportunity, and that is also particular market engagement, and they would run maybe a session, so they'll give an introductory talk to the opportunity, what it is that they're purchasing, when it's going to be going live or when they want it to be going live, how they are planning on purchasing that product or service. On the back of that initial talk, what they will then do is ask for any questions. So you as a provider can ask any questions to better understand that opportunity. If you feel that the way that they're going to be running the procurement could be done in a better way, or something could work better for providers to be able to access the opportunity, you can give suggestions. This is in a market engagement event more than a Meet the Buyer event, but it may be named the same thing. So always, if you're seeing these things advertised, have a look into them to understand whether it's something that's suitable for you guys to be attending, of course. At any networking event, if there's a presentation, there should always be time for an actual like one-to-one chats on the back of the initial presentation, so the actual networking side of things. That is more what we've run into just now, is more of a market engagement event. Other than the market engagement events, like we've said, there's the Meet the Buyer events where they'll discuss forward pipelines. So we at Go for Growth, we attended a West Yorkshire Meet the Buyer event late last year. So members of the entire combined authority attended. So there was Bradford Council, there was Calderdale Council, Leeds City Council. They were all there. They all did a presentation to discuss what they're going to be purchasing in the upcoming months, how they expect to be purchasing these things, what their goals are, what they want to see from the providers that they're going to be working with. These events can give you a real good idea of how your values align with those of who you're wanting to be working with or who your target audience is. And then on the back of those initial presentations, we went into some round tables in an alternative room, and we kind of swapped tables. We went round in a circle, so everybody got a chance to sit with each of the combined authority and ask any questions and have some time to really get to know the people that they were speaking with, which can be really valuable. As not all contracts, and I'm not sure whether you are aware of this, it is spend below, say, the if it's tail end spend, it's not actually mandatory that there is a contracting competition for these opportunities. And I do tend to find that people be coming to me and asking me, how do I get involved in the opportunities in which the contracting authority are reaching out to us? So putting forward requests for quotations. It can be quite tricky, because if the contracting authority aren't aware of your organisation or the type of product or service that you offer, you're never going to be involved in those requests for quotations. But attending things such as these networking events, these Meet the Buyer events, communicating with them via social media, they're going to become more and more aware of you as an organisation, what you offer, why the product or service that you offer is great, and why you should be involved in the tender process. And then you'll start to see potentially more of the request for quotations coming through. So for the opportunities that aren't advertised on Contracts Finder or via the procurement portal, because it's not mandatory, they don't have to do it. So that's kind of the networking side of things. That's the reason that networking can be a good idea, because it gets you in front of the people that you're wanting to sell to. It gets you and gives you a chance to understand what they're looking to buy, how they're looking to buy it, what's important for them to see from providers, and also gives you a chance to introduce yourself and get yourself on their radar. Social media is very similar. The reason we put this into the engagement slide is because, as we've said, you can keep up to date with the events that they are going to be running. You can keep up to date with some new opportunities. And I mean, it's not always, but it's becoming more and more common that when a new opportunity does go live, if you're not actively looking on the procurement portals, which we would always advise that you are doing, social media is a way that contracting authorities are starting to advertise their opportunities, but that would be in addition to them advertising it on the procurement portal. But what they would also advertise on their social media channels that they may not advertise on the procurement portals is support around those contracting opportunities. So say, for example, last year, North Yorkshire County Council hosted North Yorkshire County Council had an opportunity for their approved provider list for care services, or adult care services, should I say. Go for Growth supported on this procurement quite closely, and we ran multiple webinars, demo sessions, talking providers through the application, how to answer quality questions. It gave providers who attended these sessions the chance to speak with the council and better understand what they were wanting from the providers who were going to be applying or bidding for this opportunity. And this information, if you are one of those providers that are going to bid for any of those opportunities, you want to be there, you want to have the knowledge that's given over these sessions. And even if you can't actually attend the sessions, just knowing about them is enough, because they'll be recorded, they'll be shared on the back. So you can watch them back and you've then not missed out on any information. You're not on the back foot to a provider who has attended these sessions. And as we're saying, social media is the place where these will be advertised. And like we said, the market engagement events will be advertised on social media in addition to usually on the procurement portals. But I would be, like I said, if you are targeting a specific contracting authority, following their social media channels to ensure that you're not missing out on anything. But also on social media, you'll find that the contracting authorities, it's not going to be a contracting authority based on just procurement. The social media channel will be based on the contracting authority as a whole. So if it's Barnsley Council, they're not just going to be posted about what's going on within their procurement activities, but the council as a whole. And what you'll see that they'll be posting about is what's important to them, what their values are, what their goals are, what the strategic kind of aims are. And if you can familiarise yourself with the council's aims, it puts you at an advantage, because you understand what they are wanting as a contracting authority, as a public sector authority, and how you can align with their goals. If you don't already, and it's important to you that you do, you can educate yourself, better understand what it is that they're looking for, why it's important to them, and figuring out how your organisation can offer what they're looking for in a better way. So it's all little ways, and this entire webinar it's based on finding opportunities. And as I said right at the very beginning of today's session, there isn't a correct way. What we can offer at Go for Growth is guidance. We can give you pointers, and it is different for every single organisation. The support that we at Go for Growth offer organisations is different organisation to organisation, and we tailor support to your needs. But in the way that we tailor the support that is needed, or the ways that you'll look for opportunities, the way that you'll engage with your local authorities will be completely different. That does, however, pretty much bring us to the end of today's session. We are very close to 10:15, and I'm aware some of you may need to pop off, so I am going to quickly run over onto the Q&A for today's session. There was a couple of questions that were asked in the pre-event questionnaire, which I am going to be running over in just a moment. But I can see also that there is a question, I do believe, already in the Q&A, so bear with me a moment. Okay. So one of the questions that we did get then, I'm just going to pull it up because I've got it down in front of me. So the first one was then, so what are the main issues faced by businesses in the process of bidding for tenders? So what we tend to find then is there are two big issues faced by business when it comes to tendering. So I think firstly, it's probably more about actually being prepared and having the actual time to access the bids. So when I say that the resources may not be the same for all the different sizes of organisations, I think, yeah, being prepared for the bid and secondly, having time to do the bid are the two main issues. So it's about preparation. Bear with me a moment. I'm so sorry. Just be a quick moment. Yeah, so two big issues faced by businesses when it does come to the tender process then. So being prepared for the bid. If you're out there looking for opportunities or if you've got the notifications set up and you're aware you're ready for them to come through, as we said, when you're setting up the notifications on Contracts Finder, if you've got the notifications coming through once every 2 weeks, you're increasing your chances of not having enough time to submit your bid. You need sufficient time to be able to lay out how you're going to construct your response, to understand the tender documentation, to be able to figure out pricing, that kind of thing. So being prepared when a bid comes in, so when you're searching through Contracts Finder or when the notification comes through Contracts Finder and you see an opportunity that you think, oh yeah, that is perfect, that's something that I want to be going for, that when you express your interest, download those documentations, that you have everything set in place to do it. Because what we do tend to find is, and we've got it with we've had it with tenders that we've been supporting, such as the North Yorkshire County Council opportunity. Providers were aware that it was coming, but then when it actually went live, they missed the notification coming through. And maybe a week before the deadline, we then got providers contacting us saying, Lauren, I've only just opened these tender documentations. There's a lot of work to do here, and I just don't have the time to do it. And all we can do is we can try and help you get through that process quicker by simplifying the questions, but it leads to a bid of a lower quality, unfortunately. So being prepared for an opportunity going live, ensuring that if you're setting notifications up with particular contracting authorities, that you are checking them frequently, where possible, you know what it is that you're going to be looking to put forward in your bid. You have a team ready to work on that and go forward, and also being prepared. So understanding that that you are ready to access the public sector, really. If you have never worked for the public sector before, especially, understanding whether you have the licenses in place that you're going to need, the insurances that you're going to need. One way that can help you understand this is a tool that Go for Growth do offer. It's called PSSR, or Public Sector Supplier Ready. It's a tool that we do offer free of charge, and what you will do is basically register. So you'll register your organisation, you'll answer some questions regarding your organisation, you will identify where you're at within your ability to bid for public sector work at this point in time. And what we will be able to do is give you some pointers on how you can improve, or if we don't feel that you're quite ready, we'll give you pointers on how to become ready. I will link the Public Sector Supplier Ready link on the back of today in the email, of course. But moving on to that second question, which is around the tendering process and what to expect being a small business and going against a large and more reputable business. So the tendering process, we've already run through the tendering process today in small detail. We do have, apologies, I've just skipped on to the last slide. But yes, we've run over the tendering process very vaguely in regards to what you'll do. So you'll search for the opportunity, access the opportunity, express your interest, download the documentation, there's the clarification questions, that kind of thing. The tendering process will be exactly the same no matter what size the organisation. The process could be obviously a little more demanding on a smaller organisation, or an organisation who doesn't have the same resources or who isn't as prepared as an organisation who's done a lot of planning and preparation ready for when an opportunity does go live. I am also aware, I will just say, that we have run over ever so slightly. You're more than welcome to stay on, but the entire session will be recorded. So yeah, the tender process, we do have webinars that cover the tender process in a lot more detail, which I will link on the back of today's session, again, in the follow-up email. But the latter part of the question is what to expect being a small business going against a large and more reputable business. So the law actually dictates that all suppliers are treated equally and have an equal opportunity to bid and secure work. So when it comes to public sector contracting or public sector contract competition, it has to be like a level playing field. Nobody gets more information than the other. You will all, when you express your interest in an opportunity and download the tender documentation, everyone receives the exact same documentation. You'll be given in the tender documentation a layout of how you're going to be marked. So that is usually price, quality, and social value. Social value is usually at this point in time worth around 10% of your bid. You then may find that there'll be 60% on your quality response, and then the other 30 based on pricing. But it is based on you as an organisation and how good your bid is. So 2 people could submit a bid, one being an extremely large reputable organisation, and one could be a small organisation. Like Go for Growth, we're an SME ourselves, so we could go against one of the top training providers in the UK. But as long as we have the best bid, so that overall on price, quality and social value, we offer the best product, we should win that bid. And if you feel that at any point in time it's been evaluated unfairly, or you've missed out for unfair reasons, you can question that. It has to be, especially in public sector tendering, it's very important that it is a fair game, and the size of an organisation, reputability of an organisation should make no difference. The only difference it could make is that you've got better you can give better examples. If you've got more experience, you may be able to offer better examples. But again, as long as you're able to have the confidence in your product and sell it confidently with good examples as to why you are a good fit for the product the product or service that's being purchased, there's nothing that should stop you at all. What I will do is cover, because I do sometimes in these questions that I've given on the spot, I'll give a bit more of a rambling answer. What I will do in the follow-up email, so it's going to be a rather large follow-up email, I will construct a written response for you to read through. We'll put any links, like I said, the public sector supplier ready tool. I'll give a quick description as to what the public sector supplier ready tool is, for you to have a read into. I'll also link those webinars that I'd suggested previously. But that does bring us to the end of today's session. The contact details are now on the screen for you, but like we said, the slide deck will be shared on the back of today's session. Any questions, do respond to the follow-up email or contact us on the message you can see on the screen now. If you are wanting more in-depth support, we do offer one-to-one mentoring sessions. They are free of charge. Any support that you take from Go for Growth at any time will always be free of charge. And these one-to-one sessions just give us a chance so we can introduce ourselves in a bit more detail, for you to introduce your organisation, what your goals are, and how you would like us to support you. Well, yeah, that does bring us to the end. Thank you all for staying to the end. If you do have anything at all, no ask is too big or small. Thank you very much for your time today. Goodbye.